the second episode of Breach of Etiquette, your L5R podcast, proudly brought to you by the Austin, Texas L5R Playgroup. My name is Manjoni Oso, and with me today are Paul Bernard and Peter Meindertsma, who you might remember from our first episode. And we have a new guest joining us, John DiPietro. John, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hey everybody, I'm John DiPietro. I am a Phoenix player, and I've recently joined both the RPG and the card game group.
And we'll be getting to the RPG today, but first, there is a couple of big topics in L5R this week that we definitely want to talk about. The first being the big European Championships that just happened. For those who don't know, there's a pretty active thread about the Euros going on the Legend of the Five Rings forums. The major news to come out of it was that 3 of the top 4 decks were running out of the Panku Stronghold, Footsteps of the Mad. Not to be confused with the Footsteps of Madness strategy, because I do that all the time. And there's been a lot of controversy around it, and a lot of haranguing, and a lot of discussions about whether or not the Stronghold should be banned. Footsteps of the Mad is a very unique stronghold in what it does. It's a 0/0/0 stronghold that always goes first and bows to reduce the gold cost of holdings during play for a turn by 2. That does that as a limited action, so it can lead to a very strange economy, as a lot of people have been running into since the card became legal. There is a chorus, I think, of cries for Footsteps to be banned. A lot of people are comparing it to the economical powerhouse of Kalani's Landing. And I wanted to have us sort of talk about, what we have been running into Footsteps decks since the pre-Gen Con Sendai circuit, where Footsteps holding Blitz made top 8. The first thing I wanted to get out here is that the environments in America and Europe are markedly different. I think that it is that difference that let Footsteps sort of run wild. Even in our own testing, what we learned, the sort of big major lesson, was that if you didn't play against Footsteps at all, and you would run into it at a tournament, you were going to lose. So, you guys have seen it. Peter, you haven't. But the essential sort of what it does is it's going to buy between 4 and 5 holdings turn 1, and then it's going to use various effects, cards like Through the Breach or Recruitment Effort, to turn those holdings into personalities. It doesn't really need holdings to do anything, but it can use various card effects to essentially get 6 or so guys on the table turn 2, and then swing it 2 provinces.
So you're saying it's just a completely disgusting thing?
Well, the first time you see it, it is. I will say the thing that bore through on our testing more than any other deck was, if you ran into it fresh, it was going to beat you. If you didn't expect it in the field, it was going to beat you.
It has a lot of super surprise. You're like, oh my god, here comes 6 things straight at my face. And once you get over that, oh my god, here comes 6 straight at my face, you can come up quite quickly with ways to stop it. I mean, I was playing against it multiple times with my Phoenix Shiba dueling deck, and I mean, I had the advantage of having a kill action on my box, but it was if you play any kind of nominal blitz defense, it's going to have major problems. It has to swing everything. You've bought 2 people, you return and take 2 provinces and buy more people, and you're done. So, and
it does flat out completely lose to Footsteps of Madness. Footsteps of Madness is a strategy that as a reaction negates a stronghold's action if you pay gold equal to the stronghold's gold production.
So, in other words, as a reaction, you completely, for free, deactivate their stronghold.
Yes, which means that they're down to using their border keep to buy a holding. It's you win, because they really need that going first turn one advantage to do anything. And if you can pay 0 gold and negate their turn, an effect that we call time walking based on an old magic card, you essentially win the game. And you...
Is it only work for one turn, or is
It
it?
does
Yeah.
only work for one turn, but if you get that card turn 1, they use their ability, you block it
Imagine,
off.
Peter, if not only could you buy only one holding turn 1, but your stronghold made no gold.
Yeah, your stronghold does
Fair enough.
nothing.
You just won the game. And there's a 40% shot of having it in your opening 6 if you're on 3 copies of it. There's math related to that. There's way better articles out there for you guys to see how that math works. But long story short, you will have it turn 1 or turn 2.
I mean,
And-
it's meta specifically for that deck, and it's not necessarily super useful against other things. But
I would actually disagree. I think Footsteps of Madness is a very underrated card. When we were testing it, we would run things like big Berserkers against it, and if you can blow Berserker's negation, when suddenly your kill actions happen, they're kind of screwed.
True.
Because they don't get to use a stronghold again.
going up
Right.
against top would be the same problem of...
Well,
top-
there are 2 strongholds that it doesn't do anything against. That would be the Spider's Lair, which is the ninja stronghold for Spider, or the Shadow's Lair. Peter has some experience against that stronghold, and it doesn't do anything to Temple of Purity. And both
Why
of
doesn't it do
those-
anything to Temple of Purity?
Because you can't negate that.
Correct. Temple of Purity cannot be negated.
Oh, right.
Now, you can stop the honor gain from it, which might slow it down for a turn.
But
But
4 gold to negate 2 honor is not
Yeah.
a great trade. So there are,
Well,
and to be
and-
fair, those strongholds are fairly heavily played.
just so the viewers know, not only am I Phoenix Slayer, I'm a Temple of Honor Inquisitors, or Temple of Purity Inquisitor Honor player.
Yeah, we actually do have multiple Phoenix players, like before I said it last, whatever, words. My apologies.
So,
Well, at the time when you recorded this, that your statement was accurate. I wasn't really playing at the time, so
but the whole issue, I think, with Footsteps is that if you are unprepared, it's going to come in there and it's going to wreck you. This is where I want to spend some time talking about tournament preparation. When we were getting ready for Gen Con, and the Austin Playgroup put up 2 top 8s at this year's Gen Con. Andrew Vogt top 8'd with his Scorpion deck at the Big Deck event, and Daniel Landrum made top 8 with his Crab Dishonor in the Second Chance. We spent a lot of time getting ready for these events. We'd be playing 3 or 4 days a week for multiple hours a day. We'd be building everything that we saw that we're like, we don't know what this is. I want to build it right now and play against it, just to have an understanding of what we'd be up against.
Yeah, the first thing that you have to do with any kind of large Kote or Gen Con prep is you have to make sure that you understand what you locally see is not necessarily the overall game, so you need to go out there and look for the other decks. And if you can't find deck lists, at least find something somewhere will explain the basic mechanic of the 1-2 multiple card punches, and you build a deck around that to see if you can understand and how to do it. Because a lot of losses come from the same thing we've been talking with Footsteps of the Mad, where you just see it and it just shocks you and your brain just stops because you're like, I'm trying to understand how this works rather than how do I stop it.
I agree, Paul. It's field preparation is important, and I think that's certainly one contributing factor. You could absolutely make incorrect calls. I did it at this year's Gen Con. I honestly thought post-Kote season that the PK sort of Chi-Death stuff would be kind of on the way out. I'd sort of planned around that. I was horribly wrong, so that absolutely happens, and prep can lead you to some incorrect conclusions. But at the same time, it's important to be able to adapt to strategies that you see. For example, one issue that came up in the thread about this, the Footsteps deck was running a lot of the personality kill in the action phase that's been really popular this whole arc. And the opponent's solution to that was to buy one personality a turn. That's not the correct solution. If they're not going to buy personalities for 4 turns, you buy gold for 3 turns, and then you buy 4 personalities, and then suddenly their limited kill is not that great. They might be able to kill 3 of your personalities, but they really need to swing into none. So if you can make sure they swing into 1, the matchup goes in your favor. Knowing how to play these tough matchups after you recognize them is just as important, if not more important, than recognizing any sort of silver bullet meta. So
when you're talking about preparation, like, again, for somebody who's still fairly new to this game, I've never actually played an actual tournament or anything like that. Is it possible for you to actually, like, in between matches, like, change your deck out or anything like that?
No, there's no sideboard like in Magic. Because L5R games are the best of one, after you go through registration and say you usually have to give up what your Stronghold, your Border Keep, your Bamboo Harvesters, those all have to be written down. Once that's over with, there's no changes to your deck.
So they have like full recording of what's in your deck?
No, they do not have deck lists.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion on the boards as to whether they should have deck lists or shouldn't have deck lists. And before we start that gigantic argument,
that's another podcast, folks.
Yeah, basically. The practical upshot of which is that for the most part they don't have lists, but at the same time, most of the time, if you look like you're changing cards out, someone's going to call a judge and welcome to DQ.
That is basically a DQ. Now there is good call for deck checks. I've personally run at the Austin Cotes. We've done deck lists every year. We have run random deck checks. We also check every deck that goes into the top 8. Because you just want to make sure. And there are cases we've heard about of events where guys will be playing with banned cards and make it into the top 2, right? And a simple deck check would have stopped that. But there is a lot of divided feelings on the whole issue. So regardless, I think that all the haranguing about Footsteps, for the guys who ran into it, I've been there. I remember the first time I played against that deck, and it steamrolled me. I really want to emphasize this. Like, it took me, I think, 4 games to figure out what to do. So I'm right there with you on the blindsiding. That being said, the solution is not banning a card when it's something like this. The Footsteps deck performed well at one tournament. That tournament, granted, was one of the 2 big events that L5R puts on every year. But at the same time, it hasn't performed in other environments. At Gen Con, it was hardly there to be seen. Though I do understand it was very present in the grinders. So my advice to you folks out in Euroland, if you're really worried about it, there are answers. You guys are good players. You can figure them out. There are play skill solutions to these problems, as well as meta solutions to these problems. If you're really scared of turn 2 holding blitz, run Footsteps and Hidden Defenses.
I'm also not really looking, and there's absolutely no blame game here, because I completely understand not only where you're coming from this, but the last time I remember EU getting blindsided was the entire Spider Marika Honor deck, which is also a giant blindside, and that needed bans to be landed on it. And
I disagree, and that is another
podcast.
Yeah. Suffice it to say, I think information is the solution to many problems, especially in collectible card games. And the larger issue with the Marika deck was that people knew about it, but kept it under wraps. We saw
Right.
the same thing with Turn 2 Lion earlier this
And
year.
I'm not saying that this is like something that's been kept under wraps or anything. I'm saying the reason why, in my opinion, EU is responding this way, I mean, I'm not an EU player, so I can't say it for myself, is that this feels like the Marika Blindside. Okay. It's here's another total crazy thing that just smack. Okay. So, I don't know.
So there you have it, our input on the whole Footsteps controversy. Moving on to better and brighter topics. So for those who don't know, L5R has a new expansion coming out in November. The expansion is Aftermath and deals with the sort of conclusion of the Panku Fudo struggle, which has been kind of a focal point of the Emperor Edition arc, as well as drawing down a lot of the Emperor Edition plots. The Crane Mantis War is over. We're seeing the beginning of the Lion Yodotai War and a bunch of other stuff. So we're through, I think, Crane, Mantis, Lion. Someone else had a preview.
Yeah.
Crane, Mantis, Lion, oh, God, Dragon.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
Dragon.
There's a reason we're forgetting Dragon.
Okay, well, let's start with our Dragon player, Manchi.
Well, the Dragon previews, there was a personality I really dug. That was the Cavalry Kensai guy with a battle action for 5 gold. He's 2 Force and 2 Chiefs. That does sort of hurt. I don't think he's usable in the current Dragon Kensai decks that focus on sort of mid-range 7 to 8 gold cost guys with battle actions. But I do think he's a strong card heading into Ivory Edition, though his utility will be very dependent on what weapons get printed, just like every Kensai has pretty much ever been.
Speaking of weapons printed, the card that I was happy to see was we finally got a weapon that the Water Steel Sword that can copy that doesn't suck.
And there was a very strong Kensai action. It's not strong compared to what they have now, but a 2 Force 2 Chi bump in Ivory means they could engage into strategies such as bully dueling, especially if there's more weapons that give Chi, of which I think there's 2 in Gates of Chaos that give Chi. So, the issue I have with the Dragon previews besides that guy is I don't really know anything about what they're going to be doing. And the tattooed personalities, I got into the Dragon pretty much because of Yokuni and Hoshi and Satsu and Mitsu and these sorts of personalities. And the issue with the tattooed cards I'm seeing now is there's a real lack of excitement in terms of what they do. There's a cheap Void Monk who has Tactician, but not Tactician, so he can't do tactical actions. The son of Satsu, who's had some very solid battle actions on every printing up to Aftermath, now takes the Imperial favor. I get that there's going to be a crab-dragon political conflict in the colonies, but the way you represent that is by giving me an above honor requirement body without a battle action as the Togashi Daimyo. And I'm even fine with it not being a battle action, but it doesn't do anything with rings. Like, I would have been cool with, like, any number of times per turn, bow a ring, take the favor.
Yeah,
that would have been nifty.
Yeah, and coming from Phoenix player playing in Emperor, the most disappointing daimyo was the Agasha daimyo, mainly because it interacted with the box that I hate with a passion, with a terrible box, and it's just like, here, have a daimyo that interacts with it, and it's like, that's great. Well, why did you give support to this thing?
Which box is this? Just so I know.
This is the New Foundries?
The New Foundries.
The New Foundries, which basically allows you to put spells under it, so that yeah, and basically just so you have one-time use spells. This is actually not that awesome at all.
I mean, they kind of wrote themselves into a corner with Library of Rebirth, but that's
well, yeah,
that's
but I'm at the time I remember bringing up multiple times. It's like Chiba, that they could use some love in terms of support for their theme, but no,
sure, Shiva has a kill action.
Yeah, as opposed to almost everything else, like the dueling, like Crane dueling having the shield action. So,
as the Mantis player, I can also comment on the Mantis previews, including Yashinko XP, and my perspective on the Mantis previews is, wow, who did we piss off?
It's Mantis. What do you expect?
The
Who don't
Saruchi theme, which has been struggling the entire arc, has really struggled to even be a tier 3 deck, gets nothing. The Magistrate theme gets nothing. The Kitsune theme has one of their best personalities leave the clan and gain a good action. The best personality in the Mantis right now is a Shugenja for the Spirit deck that doesn't make a Spirit and has no battle action. I'm sorry, has no action, period. She lets your Spirits bow to do a range 3. Now look, that's fine. I love the Spirits. I think that's a nifty deck. I think that having her in the same set as the Monkeys is pretty fantastic. But, wow, what did the rest of the clan do? I get that people are sore over Kalani's landing, but Jesus.
And they fixed that problem by banning it. So
Well, it's an issue, I think, of, and I really don't want to do the whole, there's always this sort of impression that after a clan does well in one arc, it is going to be awful in the next arc. Everyone said Emperor was the arc where Mantis had a shot to win a big tournament. Mantis have never won Gen Con. Kalani's Landing was unquestionably one of the strongest decks for the duration of its existence. The issue I always kept bringing up to people when before it was banned, when there was discussions about should we ban it or not, where's the performance? It did really well in the Kote season. It did phenomenally in the Kote season. Mantis and Phoenix were two of the best performing clans. Why is Temple of Purity unbanned? When Phoenix players are running Temple of Purity for every deck except spells, and the only reason Library is better is because it does that, what do we call it, free gold? It does that. Right? They're still going. They were part of problem decks that also ran Roughshot over Kote season.
And now they're running Roughshot over the Winter Court season. They've won, I think, 4 or 5 different events, including one of the events at the Euro Championship.
I can't really speak to necessarily the skill of banners, but they removed one thing out of the toolbox, but they didn't remove the toolbox entirely like they did with Kalani's. Getting rid of Kelsa made a lot of decks have to go back to the drawing board, but there wasn't anything to replace it with.
Well, they just sort of go back to the deck that was viable before people realized Kelsa was amazing, which was take a Shugenja, take your awesome spell selection, win the game.
Yeah.
And the answer to that question is yes, win the game. So I really feel like the Mantis, they didn't really get anything on theme. Their previews were really lackluster. This is, I think, the worst set for Mantis since I started playing the game.
Have we seen the reserve guy yet?
We haven't seen their reserve personality. For those who haven't been checking out the previews, first off, what are you doing listening to this and not looking at the previews? Go look at the previews.
Do it now.
And then come back
now.
Yeah.
Put it on pause.
Hit the pause button. There, well, don't worry, we'll wait.
Okay, good, you're back.
So, reserve is a keyword that lets personalities enter play in opposed battles, and as Brian Reese confirmed, you can use this to get honor in battle by proclaiming them on your turn. So you can do it on the attack, but not on the defense, which is handy for some situations, for Unicorn certainly. The personalities that have been tagged with this are tending towards really solid. The Crab have a 3-Force 3-Chi personality with Berserker and Hero and Destined, who has this reservist ability and only costs 6 gold. That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean the Phoenix one, I'm not really happy for it as its function as a reserve, just because 9 gold is a little steep, but it has a kill
it's
action.
9 gold for 4 force. 4 is extremely high for Ivory Edition.
True.
And on top of that, he has a battle action, which is ranged tactical number of spells in his unit.
Right,
Exactly.
and it ranges. And while
There's
I'm
a
not
lot of
nec-
zero cost spells. Paul.
I'm not saying. I'm saying as a person. I'm not saying the personality himself is bad. I'm saying as a reserve, he's not all that great because he pops out in your reserve. He has no spells on him, so that ability doesn't do anything, and it's 9 gold. Okay, 4 force, 9 gold. But
Crab have to pay 9 gold for 5, and their box has 3 starting on her and not 6.
point.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't be running the reserve
And
guy.
their guy who they pay 9 gold for doesn't even have an action.
Personally, I wouldn't be running the Phoenix Reserve guy myself right now, but that's because I'm currently running an honor deck, and I'm expecting to do that in the next set, and he's only a 2 PH guy. But if I was looking at a Phoenix military deck, even without the reserve action, I'd be seriously looking at putting 3 of him in my deck.
Oh no,
Whereas-
he is a solid personality. I just don't see him as a solid reserve personality.
And that I will agree with, but... And the best reservist, though, has to... So far, we've only seen about 4 of them, and there's going to be at least 1 for each of the clans, and possibly 1 on a line guy. So we could be looking at 6 more reservists. But the best one has to definitely go to Scorpion. With Wataru, is that the personality's name?
I have no idea. I know he's 4 force, 8 gold, and he says after you buy him, take another battle action, which is astounding. That guy is potentially runnable now out of ninjas, which he just happens to be. So
Yeah. He's kind of nice.
I would really say Scorpion are easily in the front runners for best reserve personality right now. So we haven't had Phoenix or Scorpion previews yet. So, but we've all seen the Crane and the Lion previews, and I've got to say those are astounding.
Oh yes, no. I'm planning on playing Crane in the next arc just to try to break myself of doing nothing but Phoenix and.
So you played the other bird clan, I understand.
What? 6 honor. It's a bird. I have to stay close to my drug of choice, but
From Firefinch to Pretty Bird.
so, but really that the scout is psychotically good in my opinion.
I don't know about psychotically good.
But again,
he's solid.
He's very solid, and I think he's going to get even more solid in Ivory when dropping a range 4 is actually going to be really nasty.
Move in and range 4.
Yeah, move in range 4 is just going to be hilarious. The fact that the only thing I've seen so far that gives a permanent force penalty is in Crane makes me happy.
Yeah, 3 force tokens. That's tough.
Yeah, that is a punch straight in the gut, just like thunk. I'm not sure how to use the gardener, but that's because I looked him up literally 20 minutes ago, so I don't know. But
Was he a tournament win? Was he one of the winner's choice events where they got to choose
Gardner,
a keyword?
I have no idea. I mean, I can look. Well, I have phone. Look it up. You guys keep on talking.
Card there is, but
Yeah.
I will look it up. You guys keep on talking.
so Paul's looking that up. The Lion previews were easily the most exciting so far. We saw a naval guy with a battle action. We saw some very good uniques. Kodo Kano can tactician for as much as 6. If Focus is reprinted, first off, I would consider running it in Ivory Edition. But he can tactician for 6 very easily. Akodo Uehara was experienced into a personality that gets terrains back from the discard pile, which is certainly worth consideration in Emperor Edition, given the amount of strong terrains we have.
Apparently, no. He does not have a thing. He's just a dude. I mean,
They also
gardener.
need a garden.
Yeah.
They do that. They have gardens.
I mean, he's an expendable Shugenja, and I don't know how the Asahina deck's going to necessarily work in Ivory, but that might be good, that might be bad. I have no idea.
We are assuming the Asahina have a deck, which is
Debatable.
yeah. But overall, I'm really happy with the Crane and the Lion previews. I think we saw a lot of interesting personalities.
We need to talk about the kata, and we need to talk about breaking the rhythm, both of which I think are
The kata was I think a preview yesterday on the countdown. So the kata we're talking about is respect, which is a karmic kata, and it says that if your opponent is beneath the honor requirement for their personality, they have to pay 2 more gold to bring them into play. So this is going to see play out of every Dishonor deck in Ivory Edition. Why? Because if you lose a point of honor from another player in Ivory Edition, you get to ignore your honor requirements, which is great. This says you can still ignore your honor requirements, but you're paying 2 more gold. So it's going to act as a big economic break. And given that you're paying the full price of personalities anyway, you're essentially adding 2 to that cost. I do think this does conflict a little bit with their stated you pay what you see strategy. But at the same time, economic lockdown has been a very important element of Dishonor for good and ill since the game's inception, and it's absolutely reasonable that we would see a card like this given the honor requirement rules changes in Ivory Edition. So what do you guys think of respect? Were you surprised or?
I misread it. I thought it was saying that you could bring in guys with basically ignoring honor requirements for 2 more, like it was blood money in a kata form. I didn't think that it was your opponent, if they're under the honor requirement and you're running a Dishonor deck, would have to pay 2 more. I didn't quite pick that up. So maybe I just misread it. Maybe it's not as intuitive as the designers were hoping it would be. So
I'll acknowledge the same sort of ideal of I was thinking that it was going to be blood money for yourself, but even I was also thinking of it on the Dishonor side, just because it's like, hey, if you don't have it, here's more money. It becomes a necessary card, and in my opinion, I don't like to make a win condition work having a card that you need to have a 3 of, and if it doesn't show up, your economic warfare just basically starts to kind of suck.
Well, I definitely think that Dishonor is going to be very strange in Ivory Edition. I think it's going to be very strong. Being perfectly honest, I think Scorpion Dishonor is going to be a deck to beat.
Well, yeah,
with what we've seen so far.
Yeah, the Dishonor holding, which is just hilarious.
Well, it's the Dishonor holding, it's the personalities they have access to, it's the strength of a lot of their cards. It's just going to be a very strong deck, and this helps it be strong by further complicating your opponent's economy. That's always been an element of Dishonor. I'm not surprised to see it in card form, but at the same time, this can get very, very quickly out of hand. Peter, did you?
No. Well, I mean, like I've been running the military Dishonor for a while now, still kind of like tweaking it and getting whatever, I got the dens in there now and everything like that. But I mean, like, I guess I just really haven't been playing decks that I've been able to really use the Dishonor against, so I'm not really seeing the draw of it. I mean, I haven't played your deck again since then, so I'm not quite sure how it will really do against you, since you're, because from what you were saying, Maji, is that Dishonor just wrecks honor.
Yeah.
And I mean, since I've been playing it so far, I guess I just haven't been getting.
It's not a full-on wreck. It's that, at least in Emperor, from my experience, if you're playing Dishonor Honor, the Dishonor personality will probably never get the Honor person below 20, but that will go to time. Okay, every single time.
Or Dishonor wins. It depends entirely on when. So the Dishonor decks that do well run passive personalities, Yusuke Jeku or Shosuro Kamiyoi base. So they're going to sit back and they're going to say, Dishonor that guy. And then you're going to have the holding Den of Iniquity out. Den of Iniquity says, bow it, your opponent's going to lose however much honor, essentially their highest honor guy has.
Yeah, well, no, it's either the personal honor of the character or 3, whichever one's lower.
Yeah.
So if someone has like a 5 honor, they're not going to be losing 5 honor. They'll be losing the 3.
Sure, but a 3-point hit that can happen 3 times in your action phase is
Right,
9
and so
points
you
of
want to
honor.
be, and so you want to
Yeah,
you obviously want to dishonor the high honored person.
At which point they immediately seppuku, at which point you go through the whole thing and basically
We've locally seen dishonor just military honor.
yeah,
decks.
once you the honor guys just have to sap everything, and then in comes the courtiers to destroy your provinces, which is kind of hilarious.
It's really funny, but
we are going to talk you to death.
Well, the really weird thing that I've noticed is that dishonor can military against honor, but honor cannot do the same. There's the Rugashi Bazaar solution, which is a 4-for-3 holding that says after you lose honor from another player's action, or if you lost them, you can essentially give 1 to 3 personalities plus 3 force. That was the solution to make honor military against dishonor. But
Well, and the problem with it is that it gets utterly flooded because, I've got 6 cards that dishonor you, and you have 3 things that could do it once. So,
and what's a dishonor deck geared to beat? Military.
Yeah.
So you're swinging in military when you have a deck that isn't designed to military against a deck designed to defend against military. So there is definitely some issues there. I really like in Celestial Edition they had a mechanic called Revenge, where you'd have the high honor clans Phoenix Crane and I think Phoenix Crane and Dragon. I'm sorry, got personalities that said if you lose honor from another player's action as a trait, give one of your personalities +1 force. So this happened every time you lost honor, and it wasn't a +1 force for the turn; it was a 1 force token. So you'd have permanent force increasing. And if you're playing an honor deck, that means you can sort of, if you're playing well, sort of keep above the rising tide of dishonor, and every time they hit you, your army gets better and better. I thought that was a much better solution than temporary force bonuses. It did a lot to correct the sort of low force swinging into military that we're seeing now. But none of that's Aftermath, so we're sorry, folks. So
digression.
the last sort of 2 big cards I want to talk about are Suwana Dojo and Jade Pearl Inn. Suwana Dojo is a 3-cost, 3-producing holding, but if your stronghold produces 3 gold, it makes 4.
Which is going to be a huge boost to both Lion and Crab. I thought you said Crab was... Well, whatever. At least Lion.
Oh, no, it's entirely for Lion. Crab don't have a...
I thought you were saying 3... Whatever, I don't... Words.
Unless Sensei's alter gold production, in which case that card gets a lot better than...
Oh, dear, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Damn.
I think that's... if you're buying Aftermath, look out for Suwana Dojo. But I think the way bigger card, and this card really worries me, is another rare holding called Jade Pearl Inn. And Jade Pearl Inn is a 3-cost, 3-production holding that, when you bring it into play, lets you search your deck for a 1-cost holding and put it in a province face up.
Here's a question with that. Is that only a 1-cost holding on the card, or if it has an effect that will make it a 1-cost holding?
Only
It has
on
to be
the
1-cost
card.
printed.
Only on the
Okay.
card.
I believe it says printed gold
Yeah.
cost of 1,
Mm-hmm.
so it has to be 1 on the card. But this essentially guarantees a 4 gold start. It's a productive mine, but better. Because with productive mine, it's stronger in Emperor right now because of the way gold works. But in the gold pool system of Ivory, Jade Pearl Inn will essentially net you 2 holdings turn 1, as opposed to productive mines 1. And the second holding is coming out of your deck, so you're reducing your odds of seeing it in later turns. And that's incredible.
The other card that I wanted to bring up before we move on to the next thing is Breaking the Rhythm, which I also think is going to be a looked for card, just because the fact that it's an absent battle makes it useful for both defense.
Is that the force penalty one?
It removes both force bonuses and force
Oh
penalties.
yeah,
absent
that's
battle.
everyone is running this card.
Yes.
Yeah.
Heads up, buy Aftermath for the 2 holdings we just talked about and that card. you're looking for those 3 to make your box worthwhile, it is absolutely worth hunting down the playset and buying it, because from what we've
Completely.
seen with Ivory, it's going to be about force bonuses and penalties, and they printed a card that negates both and can be done without presence.
Yeah.
So
Military
run it.
wants it. Military wants it. Not everybody.
Honor
that
wants
thing.
it.
Honor wants
Yeah.
it.
Everybody's
going to
want to use that because one, if you're running the honor deck, you want to negate them.
Yeah.
The military's just going to want it just because.
Well, military's going to want it because everything is handing out either force bonuses or force penalties. If you basically have something that just goes funk, that stops the thing that's stopping you from taking the province.
Right.
A very big thing in card games is what we call staple cards. Staple cards are cards that are going to be run by every deck. And L5R right now, heading into Ivory, has what I would consider 3 staple cards. Productive Mind, Jade Pearl In, and Breaking the Rhythm. You want to hunt down your playsets of these first kids, because come Ivory base, they're going to be a lot harder to find.
Yup.
Are these one of the dual bugs?
Oh,
They're
they're
all
All dual bugged.
All dual
2 of them
okay.
from Aftermath, and Productive Mind is from
Productive Mind is Gates.
Gates.
Okay.
Hunt them down, buy them. You're going to want them. Not even messing around a little bit here.
Act now, kids. Get your credit cards ready.
Right?
Basically.
So, one thing that I've been wanting to talk about for a little while is the Legend of the Five Rings 4th edition role-playing game. And luckily for our listeners, all 4 of us are involved in a weekly L5R 4th ed game. We run Heroes of Rokugan modules. For those of you who don't know, Heroes of Rokugan is roughly analogous to the Pathfinder Society or Living Greyhawk, but for L5R. And they're on Season 3, Heroes of Rokugan 3, Spirit of Bushido. It is a blasty blast.
Oh yeah, no. Shameless plug right now. Almost every single, there have been very few out of the 30 some odd modules that we've played that I've not really enjoyed, but almost all of them are something interesting that you would love to have your characters involved in is happening, and you just get to do wacko crazy stuff.
Yeah, I started playing, I guess it was about 2 weeks after Easter, because you guys were playing the week before Easter. You played 0-0, then it was Easter, and then I came in the week after that. So I've been playing since then, had to take a couple breaks here and there, but now our group has 2 tables, so I've been able to go back and play all the adventures that I missed or wasn't able to get in on because of stuff that was happening in my life. And it's really been exciting. You get to do really cool things. There are certain limits because it is a living campaign, so there's certain limits to what you can accomplish. But with,
I disagree, but
Well, there are certain limits to what you can accomplish, in and as much of the fact that once you get to a certain point, you have to have the mods on your side. But the mods are, a lot of times, the mods have been like, that sounds like a cool idea, go. So,
yeah, all due credit to Catlin and Corey, who are the administrators for HOR3, and all of the crew that runs it. It's volunteer-based. They run a website, a wiki, and a forum, all for Heroes of Rokugan 3. You guys should definitely go check it out. We've been running it here in town since around Easter, and it's been completely fun. Paul and I went to Gen Con to play Heroes of Rokugan, and a bunch of us are going to the Kansas City Game Fair here at the end of November to go play more Heroes of Rokugan.
well, yeah, no, full disclosure here, I went to Gen Con and I was like, well, I'm going to play some Heroes of Rokugan and I'll play some L5R card game. And it was like, here's Rokugan, stuff. Wait, I can do that? I get to do that? Okay, so that card game's done. Oh, I get to do, okay, that card game's... I basically spent a weekend playing HOR and skipping all of the card games things that I'd signed up for.
I played 3 rounds of the Second Chance event at Gen Con this year. And after running into 2 limited phase kill decks, I was like, I could stay here and be miserable for 4 rounds, or I could go play in the Battle Interactive. After about 3 minutes, I dropped out of the tournament and went to go play the Battle Interactive, and it was absolutely amazing. Yes. So we've all been playing the L5R RPG for a little while now. And one thing I wanted to open up to you guys is so 4th Ed L5R has printed a ton of books right now. We're up to
Book of Fire.
Book of Fire was the most recent. We have Secrets of the Empire coming out very shortly. And so what book, besides the core book, because you can't say that because that's a gimme, what book has been your favorite or the strongest book so far in the RPG?
Well, just like the core book is obviously going to be the staple of the RPG or and whatnot, but the Emerald Empire book and the Histories books,
Imperial Histories 1
yeah,
and 2?
Yeah.
both that stack of books right there is basically, if you don't get any of the other books aside from the core book, obviously you need to have those books.
I was going to say Imperial Histories 2 before I got preempted, so that makes me sad. But
You've been ninja'd.
yes, it's all been stolen from me. However, if I were to say books outside of that, coming from having to DM it a couple of times when we were just trying to play a pickup game that wasn't HOR, wasn't Heroes, I should say. Sorry, abbreviations. Enemies of the Empire is ridiculously useful. If you want to be the STDM, whatever the hell you want to term it, you need that book, like, bar none. It will tell you all about all of the different things and gives you good, decent backgrounds, gives you a bunch of random things so that you have at least the starting of stats for each of these. Plus, it also gives you at least some idea of... So if you're going to come into this cold, having Enter the Empires really tells you all you need to know about the
All the
whole
stuff that you
story.
need to kill.
Yes. So it'll give you a good background into the story, into the Colon, into the Shadowlands, into this, that, the other thing.
Well, you were... Oh, sorry, John. You were going to say you were going to talk about Imperial Histories 2. What in Imperial Histories 2 do you think actually makes it, like...
Okay, I sat down on the plan of making a L5R just pickup game that I was going to play on Sundays with Manji and a bunch of other friends, and I went through this book, and literally Manji could tell you that at the next time that we talked about this, I said, I have 4 ideas. Which one would you like to play? And that was just reading that book. Okay, it is a welter of, here is a sentence that will spawn an entire campaign. Go.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All of those books are amazing, in my opinion. Emerald Empire gives you all the flavor for the Empire that you're going to need. Imperial's Histories 1 and 2 gives you campaign settings, and it gives you plot backgrounds. There are points that we've run across in the HOR game that I've recognized and also in the card game, and I've recognized the significance of it because I had the Imperial Histories books. So just as a pure reference, not even looking at the mechanics, or looking at it as campaign settings, having that history of the Empire is really useful. And enemies as a DM tool, I definitely will agree with. My personal favorite is Great Clans, however. It's useful for both DMs, but it's more of kind of like the player's guide it's kind of the player's guide to the clans. Between that and Emerald Empire are kind of both the player's guides beyond the core book. And
My favorite part of Great Clans are when they stat the Clan War era, like daimyos, like
Yeah.
Kasada. And you're like, well, he would obliterate, let's say, 3 parties at once.
yeah,
Hida Kasada.
and that's
rank
the
9.
thing is that it folds in. It folds in kind of what I like about both the Emerald Empire books and the Imperial Histories books, and gives you useful mechanics in addition to that, because it gives you a general history of the clan and important moments, the Scorpion clan coup. It also talks about culturally relevant things, both that are aimed at that clan, but often have greater implications for the setting. For example, the Crane chapter goes into incredible detail on how to have a love affair in Rokugan, and all the different and multiple permutations of that.
I mean, yeah, and in addition to all of that, again, whatever, but in addition to all of that, you have the function of both Way of the Clans and Emerald Empires both give you enough of a background that you can then walk up to the scary maw that is the L5R wiki online and actually understand what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
Because I read that before I read those books, and after that I read those books, and after it made a lot more sense.
Yeah. I just like to point out that John's favorite part of Great Clans is how to cheat on your Imperial spouse.
Whatever do you mean?
So I'm going to go ahead and do a plug. I did writing for the Book of Earth. I did the Sumai, the Castle section, and the Sieges section, and with Maxime Lemaire. And sorry, Max, if I butcher your name. I am terrible with French names, so I apologize.
Yes, he got my last name Englishized as well, so.
Whatevs. We're American. We speak American. Anyway, so I worked with Max, and Rob Hobart was great in editing my my text into something that everybody could really enjoy. And I really like Book of Earth, but in a larger sense. So my problem with Emerald Empire and the Great Clans books was that after I started getting into the L5R RPG, I went and I hunted down as many of the old source books as I can. You can look over on my shelf. You guys can't because you're on the internet, but that's not my problem. And you can see that I've got the first ed core book, the second ed player's guide and GM book. I have every way of the clans. I have Time of the Void, Hidden Emperor, several third ed source books. So getting the Great Clans is in a lot of ways I feel a reprinting of information I already had from the Way of the Clan books. So
Yeah, but I mean, not
didn't,
everyone's going to have the
Sure,
access
no.
to John Wick's original stuff. So,
Look, if you're having trouble finding it, seriously, half-price books, go. Every Scorpion player, this is an immutable law. Every Scorpion player should read Way of the Scorpion.
yes, the appendices in that book will tell you exactly, this is what you need to do. Just in case you don't understand, this is what a Scorpion is.
There are two definite parts in Way of the Scorpion appendix that you need to read. Just because, one thing, whenever anybody reads the Scorpion clan out of, just coming into the new, they're like, oh, ninjas. So the two things is the Treachery 101, obviously, which tells you basically how to actually play a Scorpion. And the second is the actual ninja section in there, which actually explains what it means to actually be a ninja in the Scorpion clan. And it is not, poof, I go...
You are not Ryu Hayabusa.
Well, yeah, you're coming from the conception of ninjas inside the actual culture, which is completely different than the Western conception of what a ninja is, where it's
Well, even the anime conception that a lot of people...
Even the anime conception of what it is you are a secret. The whole point of your action is you are not supposed to be very, very important. Something happens and then everyone goes, oh my god, ninjas. It's just like random news events just occur, and it's like, oh, this person died. And you're like, oh, that feels sad. And then you eventually find out that there was a giant ninja plot. But that's how ninjas are supposed to be played.
Yes. And here's the thing about playing the ninjas. If you're a black pajama wearing ninja, you are the lowest of the rung within...
You would technically be rank 0 if you're going by...
Technically, that's your Genpuku, is you
Yeah.
survive that
Yes.
for a year.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not until you get out of your black pajamas that you're a real ninja.
So, Way of the Scorpion's important, guys. You can get it on Drive-Thru RPG. You can also find it at your local half-price books. If you're into the Scorpion clan at all and you haven't gotten this book, get it because it's phenomenal. But besides the Book of Earth, which I have to shamelessly self-plug, also I did some writing for Secrets of the Empire, so feel free to buy that at your own leisure.
When it comes out.
Which will hopefully be November.
For those, by the way, for those people who live in a place that Half Price Books does not exist, Half Price Books is obviously a used bookstore, so go for a used bookstore.
But I would have to say that my favorite source book so far, I really can't separate them because I like what they do in general, which I really like the Elements books. The Book of Air, the Book of Earth, and the Book of Fire.
Sorry.
So Paul is giggly because the Book of Fire is maybe the most broken book they've printed so far in L5R.
There might be a few spells in there that probably shouldn't see play.
There are some celestial weapons that are the best.
It's telling. Part of it's because they haven't. It just came out, so they probably haven't gotten around to reviewing it. But it's telling that they that in Heroes of Rokugan they released permission to use the spells from Book of Air and Book of Earth, but they have not yet released the Book of Fire spells, and there's a good reason for that.
But
Kill
besides
anything.
besides the mechanics, and there's absurd bow mechanics in the Book of Air, like you're rank 6, you're a Saruchi, just kill something. You have line of sight, it's dead.
Yeah.
Book of Earth is full of like you're a crab in heavy armor, you just don't care about things anymore. So I mean, there are crazy mechanics in every book.
I do like in the Book of Air the extended raise mechanics for shooting arrows.
Yes. Yeah, those.
So you want to shoot another archer's bowstring whilst mounted and a mile away.
What's your void?
Yeah, this is how many razors you need to make. Go.
But-
Great potential. Let it too.
Yeah, great potential Kyujutsu, learn it. But
Fair enough.
The larger thing that I really enjoy about the Elements books is that they push new ideas. As someone who's sort of gone back and collected a bunch of the old material, it's refreshing to see in these books sort of new perspectives being introduced. I really enjoy the settings that are getting put out. I really enjoy Book of Fire had a lot of great information on swordsmithing and how that's done that hasn't really been covered in depth in quite some time.
And they actually put in some mechanics for actual sparring weapons.
Which is very cool.
Yes.
So I have to sort of lump them together because I don't really want to break them apart. But the Elements books are definitely my favorite pieces of the 4th edition puzzle so far.
I will definitely say I agree with. I still think that the Great Clans for me is my favorite. Just to give you a little bit more background on how I got into the game, my first D&D character ever was an Isawa Fire Void Shugenja. The problem is this was when Wizards of the Coast owned the game and published Oriental Adventures. So that was my background on the characters until I met you, around the time I was meeting you guys. I found out this game was still alive and I was looking into everything. So I had a lot of misconceptions about how Rokugan worked and how everything functioned in Rokugan. And it wasn't until I was picking up these books and reading them that I realized, oh, this is a lot less generic Asian culture and more very detailed story and very detailed cultural norms and mores that you have to follow.
So something that I've been thinking about as we've all been discussing what our favorite books are is we're each coming from this from a different perspective, and that's what makes this great. But potentially we might consider, okay, you're new to the L5 RPG, you've only really played the card game. What are the books you can get of in order? Obviously, first one is the core, but what after that?
Well, like I said, that stack that I mentioned in the beginning, the core book, the Emerald Empire, and the histories books.
I would respectfully disagree, Peter. I think that there are, besides the core book, so heads up if you're getting into the RPG, you're dropping $60 in the core book. Welcome to playing role-playing games.
Yeah, basically.
But besides that, I think if you're an experienced GM and you know a little bit about L5
I was talking
already,
from a player perspective.
From player's perspective, you need Great Clans.
Yes.
Yeah, straight up.
Great Clans
End
first.
of discussion, Great Clans. That's going to have most of your character options, your background, all that. And as a GM, you need enemies of the Empire. The list of enemies in the core book is somewhat sufficient, but you're really going to need enemies of the Empire to get a handle on stuff like the Kolot, the Nothing, and really good examples of Blood Speakers. Heads up, because I did have to learn this lesson the hard way, you really don't want to throw Yajinden or Yuchiban at a party.
Ever.
They can't win.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
When the notation on these characters are, they know everything. Don't even ask for a spell list. They just know it. This is a problem for
And
your party.
then there's Daigatsu.
No, Daigotsu is actually, I think, a little more able to be handled than...
No.
Just based off of okay, depending on which iteration of him. If it's his early iteration, he's a little bit more easy to handle. But
By the earliest time he started in 4th edition, he already knows Almaho, and that's just what you need. And by the time he's, I think they set him as the Spider Clan champion in Great Clans. And at that point, he knows not just all Maho spells,
He
but
knows
all
all
spells.
spells.
Yeah, no.
All of them.
And really, one of the biggest sort of card game to RPG things that will give you a slight pause, at least I kind of had, was the effectiveness of Maho. Maho in Emperor was like, okay, there's this thing called Maho and whatever on the other side. Maho in 4th edition will wreck you. It just straight up goes, hey,
The most powerful spells in the game are Maho, and it is very easy. A character that knows all Maho starts by casting a rank 1 Maho spell that makes them untargetable and can't be countered. So, you get to have fun with that, because you now have an enemy that can't be targeted, and if they know all spells, by the way, they can still see you just fine.
Yeah.
It gets dumb real
One,
quick.
hope that you have a really high stealth roll where they haven't known that you were there beforehand.
Step 1, hope that your GM doesn't do this to you.
Well, yeah.
Step 2, hope that your initiative is higher if your GM does do that to you.
And step 3, hope that one of you has the fire spell that says target personality, execute them, and then your character gets to die.
If you do plan on taking that, talk with your GM and hope that he lets you take Great Destiny.
Or just run a Nezumi name magician, because I allowed that. That was a terrible mistake.
Now, this is one thing I will say about the game, though. The good thing is that, well, I definitely agree that if you're a player, you need to get great clans, and if you're a GM, you do need to get enemies of the Empire if you want to do any of those other types of enemies. The great thing about Rokugan is that since so much of the action is clan versus clan, if you're a GM and you just have the core book, you can easily make your enemies through that.
They have on the website, you can download the free RPG Day Adventure Legacy of Disaster, and that is the sort of canon resource for your rank 1 clan samurai.
Don't use the characters made in it.
Yeah, those are fun.
Go through and
The
try to
Scorpion
make.
clan Bushi can't use void points.
No, he has Hote's. He has the Hote's
No,
curse.
he has
No, he has the
Momo.
He does?
It's,
No.
no.
Make your own character and
the
then run
characters
to
are
that
terrible.
module.
When we ran that one for the play and save, one of the things that our local game store, the Dragon's Lair, does is that they will occasionally put on Saturday game demonstrations, and we had an L5R RPG one. We ran that adventure, but we used the Heroes of Rokugan demo characters.
The Heroes of Rokugan pre-mades are fantastic. I heartily recommend them even for home games.
Yup.
And last thing I want to do is, speaking of Saturday, if you are in Austin, Texas, or you're in Texas and you want to do something on November 2nd, we will be hosting a 25-hour, it turns out.
Yeah.
Daylight savings time, go!
25-hour gaming marathon for Extra Life, which is a charity gaming event that benefits, in our case, Dell Children's Hospital of Central Texas. We'll be running Heroes of Rokugan modules. Basically, I think every module we have over the time period will also be featuring a Game Master Roundtable where people will be able to get advice on their home games. And if you're in the area, please feel free to go ahead and check that out. It's going to be super fun. I should know I've been organizing it for about 6 months. So
I'm going to speak up on this. It's not just L5R, so if you're like, oh my god, I don't really want to get into the L5R card game.
I don't want to play L5R for 25 hours.
It has other things, and by the way, also, if you don't really want to get into the L5R RPG, but you're playing the card game, I feel sorry for you. But that's its own thing. But there are other things. What? Anyway, there are other things. I'm going to be there as World of Darkness, and there's going to be Tephra, and there's going to be
D&D Next and
Pathfinder.
Yep.
There's talk of some people bringing Shadowrun 5th edition.
Oh, that's interesting.
So there's going to be a lot of stuff. We're going to be gaming till all the hours where you really shouldn't be gaming. And if you're
unless,
in the
of course,
area...
you like it that way.
Anyway, if you're in the area, feel free to stop by.
Damn it, Sakai!
We're going to call it, folks. We're clearly out of it. Thanks for listening. This is Breach of Etiquette. See you guys next time.
Laters.